All right.
All right.
Yeah, what are we working on, Michael?
Yeah, so welcome everybody. Thank you for the interest here. So I've been struggling a little bit with writing some nice tests for GraphQL. Particularly, I've been running into some issues when it comes to local resolvers. A little bit of background. Currently, local resolvers are what we use to kind of, or what you would use to kind of resolve a local value instead of creating a GraphQL fetch. So an example of that would be if you have to read from a cookie or local storage, that's a pretty good application for it. I should say that, disclaimer, little star, that they are being deprecated and the prescribed way, yeah, well, hold your horses. The prescribed way of taking care of this is to use what's called a local field. And I can share some links to that. Do we have a document that we usually write in for
No,
this?
if you want to just drop it in the chat, that's fine. And I'll
Maybe Slack, the thread on Slack.
that's a
so
really
it
good
stays
point. Thank you, Nico. Yeah,
permanent.
if you want to drop it in the
That-
Slack thread, that's a good point.
Let me.
So while you do that,
Yes.
just a note is that don't worry too much about it being deprecated because we would have to upgrade to a much newer version of Apollo GraphQL for it to start affecting us. And my understanding from talking to Natalia, because when I was working on local resolvers, I essentially went through this, or I like looked it up, saw it was deprecated, was like, Natalia, am I doing the right thing here? And she was like, yes, don't worry. It's probably going to be a little while before we update. So don't worry too much. We also use them we've been using them in CI to help front end work ahead of back end. So that if you have a REST endpoint, but it's particularly in CI because we have so much legacy code that uses like old homegrown store solutions, like from before Vuex or whatever. We've just like gone turbo and gone straight to Apollo instead of doing the middle ground. So you can use the local resolvers as well to do your Axios calls inside so that your front end can use Apollo, but you're still using the REST endpoints till the back end catches up.
Yeah, exactly. So, so it's actually a really nice way of creating a small wrapper or like starting ahead of schedule a little bit on the front end to migrate towards using GraphQL, even if the endpoint is not there yet. So that's a great example, and that's exactly what I'm using it for in this case. And in the future, we might be able to use local fields, even though it's going to be a while before we do that. It's probably going to look similar, I think, from looking at the documentation. But the problem is, or what's holding us back there, is that local fields cannot be async. So you cannot do async stuff in local. Yeah, and people are like, what? Why? So it's a whole conversation. There's an issue on that. I will post that in the thread afterwards. Yeah, so why don't I share my screen and show you exactly what's happening and what I'm trying to set up. Cool. So I use Sublime, so bear with me for that. Not everybody likes that, I know.
No, that's cool. Just as
see,
long as it's dark mode. If it's light mode, I'm gonna have to leave because it hurts my eyes.
Yeah, no. Here we go. All right, so it's pretty plain here. I'm using the groups endpoint, and
can you bump the type size up like 1 or 2?
Yes,
awesome,
definitely.
thank you.
I know I use small font, so thank you for calling that out. Cool. So all I'm doing here really is just a regular Axios get. I could use the API stuff, but I want to do stuff with headers, and so I'm just making the integration myself. This is actually paginated, and it actually works. I have an example where it fetches all the groups on the root level. So this is generally what it looks like. We're using the per page and passing that on and the search parameter. But essentially, this is a local resolver for, and is particularly in the DevOps report page, it's not being used yet, but we are about to use it. And if we look at the GraphQL queries, we'll see we have a query that matches the client or uses the client directive, which actively means that it's going to use the local resolver that we've created.
At the risk of starting more discussion, so like this seems so helpful and nice. Is there a reason why they're deprecating it?
I think it's because that local fields are taking over and can do some of the same things, and usually provides for, I don't know, in their book, nicer, easier implementation.
Oh,
but
okay.
essentially, you're supposed to be able to do the same thing
That makes sense.
outside of async, apparently. But I
Okay.
think that's something that they probably are looking to fix.
Okay, cool. Keep going. Thanks.
Yeah, please interrupt if you have any questions, because I've been doing some deep dive into this and trying to understand what was going wrong.
This is so freaking educational. So I really appreciate you bringing this up, Michael.
Awesome. Yeah. And so what I did was I created a spec for it. So I should actually also just show you how I'm using it. So in here, this is our application where we want to use it. And here is the integration. We're saying, let's get a hold of that groups query. This is the query that we want to look at. And that's a reference to the GraphQL query I showed you before. And the results, we don't really care. You could pass in the data here, but we don't really care about that because since I'm in the resolver, I'm mapping it out exactly as how I want it. I don't need to change it anyways. So I'm just gonna go ahead and grab it straight from page info and looking if there's a next page. And then I've set up this method to call the fetch more for the pagination to work essentially. And then there's a is loader, there's a check if the nodes are empty in the groups query, and there's an error handler finally. There, where we set something to the code. But it doesn't really use the result for anything as of now. So this is just setting up the data to be used later or down the road. All right, cool. So in our spec, and I've set up a little bit here, a few tests that test the regular case where we're reloading, where we don't have data, when there's data present, and when there's an error to test the different states. And I've specified a particular case in the branch that I shared with you where data is present. And in this case, we want to use the mock adapter because for the local resolver, we want to take or listen to that route, and then we want to respond with the data and make sure that the resolver does its work and provides the data as we expect it to be for the component itself. And down here, I'm just listening. I'm not implementing, mocking it or anything. I'm just listening, spying on it, the fetch more to see that it actually gets called again, because that's kind of the ability that we want to test here, is that when there is a next page, we want to make sure that it tries to fetch the next one. So that's pretty much what I'm looking to zoom in on. And if I do run this in I've actually already have it running, but I'm going to run it again so you can see the command here. Just focusing in on that particular test, nothing magical there. And so we do actually pass because the fetch more gets called. But
push it, merge it, that's it.
That's it. All right, cool. We're done. Thank you guys, or peeps. Thank you for checking in. That was it. No, unfortunately. So there's an invariant violation here that the observable query does not know this ID. And as far as I could read, I do believe it has something to do with us starting to use variables here, whereas, as you see, we don't do that in the original query. messed around with that a little bit because, so this was referring to a particular thread. Let me find that. So this is the issue that I created.
Okay.
And
did Natalia mention anything about type name?
Type name, no.
Natalia had an issue like some months ago. We were doing something weird and nothing was working, and we got these weird ID can't be found issues, but the ID totally was there. But when you dived into the source code, were you there, Nico? Do you remember this?
Yeah. So I think the mock Apollo now actually rewrite the Vitali was there as well, right? I think he solved it so. Actually. Yeah. So we are rewriting those. Maybe we should just remove the type name from there.
From this one?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Let me see.
Like, is it in our query? Like, don't all our queries need to have type name now? Do you know what I'm saying?
I don't think they do. I think they only need the type name in them if you're using the startup JS to prefetch the query, because the type, okay. I don't know why I'm talking because there's people on this call who know way more about GraphQL than I do, but I think it's because it's using the type name to like match it in the cache.
That sounds right, and that makes sense.
Yeah. So one thing I should note is that we are, per Natalia's prescription, we are writing the query here with the data. And that's the only way, let me remove this for a moment so you can see, that's the only way that I actually could get the result to fire. So you see here, it actually stalls in the loading position, and no matter how many next step or next tick I wait, I don't get any further. And she was nice enough to show me that we actually need to kind of activate it by writing the cache. And this is when we're using a local query. And note, I'm passing in the resolver here, the local resolver, but that's not enough for us. So we need to actually set the query with some data, and it's only when I actually pass in data with something groups. So if I just remove the data, the groups from the data, it still doesn't get activated.
Okay. So I have an absolutely crazy thought, and feel free to be like, Paul, you don't know anything, so be quiet. Is it possible that we're triggering fetch more and then we add the spy? Because I noticed that like we're not doing any action after we create the component, and then we're checking on line 121 to see if that spy was called. Like, is it possible that when we did that write query, technically it was being called like twice or something? Or does that make sense? Like,
well, yeah, I could see that happening, but
maybe if we add a console log there, we can get some visibility on what's actually happening.
Yeah, sure, definitely. I should also say that so what I was trying to get at with the resolvers is that we're both writing to query and we're like asking mock adapter to return something for us. As soon as I write to the query, I don't hit this request ever. Like, this doesn't get activated. What do you call it? Actions.
Oh, write query is putting those values straight in cache, and so it's not hitting this part of the code, right? Oh, that's disappointing.
So disappointing.
Man, cache validation is so difficult. Anyways, I'm dealing with all sorts of Webpack cache things, and I hate cache.
So here we have response. So here we have response, but they don't actually. Oops. They don't actually get that result. Does not end up in the component.
Oh, interesting. Do you think it's because it's like maybe we're not? Because all of this is happening asynchronously too. Like maybe we need to be waiting for something. So one we could do like throw a wait for promises or something somewhere, but I've actually found it to be nice. I'd like to get other people's opinions, because wait for promises can also be flaky. And that could be what's causing the test to pass, but then fail with these error messages later, is that we've done some sort of cleanup, but other things are still going on. What I found to be helpful sometimes is to
stuff here. You're right. It's getting called multiple times.
What I found to be helpful is to emit an event that's like a test, like a use, like we're not going to actually register it in our code, but like just using this event in our test, knowing, hey, let's wait for this specific event or whatever.
I'm down. Why don't you tell me what to do?
Yeah, so I'm a little outside of knowing what's 100% going on because of Apollo and stuff, but I guess wherever we've done, like, got a response back from our fetch, I guess we do fetch. I guess when we call groups, there's a
We could do it in the resolver.
Do we have access to our component there to like emit it?
No, we don't.
Oh man.
No.
No, it would be in our component somewhere. We could emit some sort of event, and that's what we want to wait for.
And and this is where the Vue Apollo integration comes in. And I'm starting to not really like Vue Apollo integration because it's
okay.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a opinion right there in the face of y'all.
So what if we did one in? What if we did in a result? If inside of result, if we did like right below line 27,
Gotcha.
if we did this dot emit,
is it like this?
Yep. Can someone please stop me if I'm about to do something stupid, or stop me or Michael?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Sarah's like, I want to see you burn. This is not going to work. I'm joking, Sarah.
We're learning. But anyway, Peyton has a real question.
So I recently tested a local resolver, pretty much the exact same use case you did. And I wonder if we're doing, I didn't instantiate cache, but I'm wondering if we're doing too much, like actually mocking the default client, like in the component, so the way I did it is just mock Apollo and create component, not like actually create a default client. And I didn't have to use mock adapter. I don't know what you're like trying to test, but like if we're just trying to test a mutation or a query, like we can do that without like trying to go end to end. If that, I came in a little late, so.
Yeah, you sound like you have a lot of experience on this. So, and it sounds exactly like what I'm looking for, because I'm okay with testing. I actually wrote tests for the resolver separately to just like cover that. And then what I'm looking to do is like somehow to tell my component, now you receive data, or now you're still loading, or now you received an error from either the original query or for the fetch more query.
In that case, why don't we keep the mock Apollo client, but we use a mocked resolver, then we can control and we can remove mock on get, and we are in our mocked instance of resolver.
Okay, let's go through that, because I could not get that to work either.
Yeah, so for instance, like if you want to take a look at a file that doesn't do what Nico's talking about, but you can look at ci_lint_spec. And then I recently did another one that's not a local resolver, but it kind of mocks it the same. Let me look. Header component spec. That's another one. So it may be a route you could do.
Okay, so this one?
Yeah, so this doesn't actually use a local resolver. It actually is using GraphQL.
That's okay.
But I don't know, somebody stop me if I'm wrong, but I don't think in like your use case, we actually need to like actually create the actual entire like Apollo client here.
Cool. So one thing I notice here is that, and I'm assuming that this doesn't use the fetch more.
No, but I think you could still mock that, right? Because is that part of the query? Like you could do a
Yeah, but the moment that you mock it out, you lose what you actually want to test here.
Yeah.
Right. You want to test that the result hook you are actually calling fetch more correctly, right?
Yeah, I wanna.
Okay, so you want to go
one.
down and nest and make sure that you're calling it with the. You're not just checking to see if it's called. You want to check the variables and then everything.
There is a
Yeah,
condition inside.
that this result function does call the fetch next page, and that results in another GraphQL query.
What's tough here is like, you know, it's nice doing that very unit test focused approach when the things you're mocking, you're just passing maybe static values to them, and I can just assert, hey, there's these list of arguments. But there's a lot of callbacks here, and I could see we start to really lose the benefit of our test when we're not able to actually assert, did I do update query as Apollo is expecting correctly, and we're actually seeing the behavior of the component. I really like the way that your test was looking, Michael. Like it looked, hey, we're setting up, we've mocked out, you know, our collaborators, and we're gonna assert what it looks like on the component. I really like that approach. But man, I know that that Apollo is really tough to work at in this level. And so that is an approach. If this ends up taking up too much time, yeah, I think what Peyton is saying is a good approach, and maybe adding a test at the feature spec level just for this, for that full coverage, and then doing something that might be a little mocky Unity over here.
The feature spec level.
It just, if this ends up being like we can't get this to work the way we want, doing a test at the feature spec level where we're just asserting, you know, we load the page and we assert that the thing showed up and buttons.
When you say feature spec, you often mean like R spec, right?
That's what
like
I mean.
Not end to end, but you mean like the R spec level because Capybara is loading the thing.
Yeah, it is in our feature folder. So that's I think where I'm getting the feature. Word.
I have no opinions.
I guess that we're getting the same like flavor by just like keeping the mock client and writing to the cache, because I'm telling the component like this is what's in the the Apollo cache for this particular query, and then what I'm doing further down is that I'm asserting that that's the case. So if I were to go and look, like this is the test as I ended up writing them.
Oh, man.
This is what we merged, right?
Yeah, exactly. Where we're actually just using the cache. We're not using the mock adapter for anything other than just capturing the requests that will fire and saying to just ignore them more or less. And then here I'm just saying, okay, this is the data that I want for this particular test case, and then asserting that the component displays that state. And we can even do, so I can even do the loading state where I'm not setting any data, and that actually displays the loading date. So that's fairly obvious, and it's readable. And so the only thing I had to like work a little bit around was that in order to simulate an error, that was the hardest part for me to do. I ended up needing to spy on the fetch more and then like mock a return value.
Can I ask a theoretical question?
Rejected value here.
Go for it, Sarah.
So what are we testing when we test the error state? Are we testing that Apollo calls our error function? Are we testing that our error function sets the message? I see you laughing. I know you know where I'm going, but like to some extent, because this came up as well in another case where I was testing the DAG that I had moved, and I was like, well, now I'm not testing the error anymore, but really, if I looked at the structure of what testing the error was, I was just testing view Apollo and view, right? Like I was like, if this value is set, does the GL alert display the text? And like, not to be crazy, but like I do, and I know we said this before, like maybe we just, it's okay to not test that. I don't know if everyone else on this call is like, no, Sarah.
And that's, sorry to jump in. For sure, I hear what you're saying, and I totally get it. And this is minimal. But there is some sense to jumping in, looking at a component, looking at the different states, and just see coverage for all the different states. And when there's not coverage for a particular state, the first thing that my mind goes is like, why not? Like, and then if I were to like jump in as a new developer, look at this component, maybe make some changes to it, I kind of want to go there and like, well, this is not covered by tests, so I might as well just also cover it with tests while I'm writing tests for it anyways. And then perhaps end up spend a lot of time getting to the same conclusion that we're getting to in this meeting, that maybe it's not worth it all the time, but it's not apparent to me. Like it's not easy for me as a developer to take a look at that test suite and see it will take time, too much time perhaps, to test this compared to what we get out of it. So what I'm looking for is a nice way for developers to look at how to test our components in the different states that we wanted to, or if not, like some way that it's communicated that that's not necessary, and this is the reason why.
I think that to add to what you're saying, Michael, too, that yeah, it's hard to see what's the actual profit here when you look at this individual component. But I do want to encourage everybody, like people, especially for new technology like this with Apollo, people copy code and people look at other code for examples. So if we can solve these problems, then it's gonna propagate across other component tests, and that's a win. For this specific example, like looking at the error state, I can see like on line 62, you could replace that with this dot handle bogus. And if we weren't testing the error state, we wouldn't have any tests fail for that typo. And to me, that's just a little warning flag, like something needs to happen. It would be nice for something to happen.
In addition to this, as somebody that recently did this, I shipped out code with a typo, and the page was erroring and the error message was empty, and there was nothing more frustrating for the user.
Oh man.
And my test wasn't hard enough to catch this because they were tested in isolation, right? So
yeah, I've been using TypeScript a lot lately.
Again, here we go.
I really want Sarah. Yeah. I really
stop. No, it's Friday afternoon. No.
Man, it's so nice, defining my types.
Oh my gosh.
Michael,
I'm gonna like get a PhD in why certain computer programmers want like a big daddy compiler to yell at them and what like personal problems it solves. Like this is my like dream PhD dissertation.
I love this conversation. Could we just start with that conversation next time and just go all day about that?
Yeah. I was against TypeScript for a while because I adopted it. We adopted it when it was like first coming out, and all the third-party types were just inconsistent, and that was really painful. I've been using Dino. Like it's kind of nice, Sarah. I'm so excited to be causing some reactions from you, Sarah.
Wait, so sorry to jump back into this. So I'm just noticing now that you can actually expect that mutate because you are assigning it a jest value somewhere.
Yeah,
because
so
you're
you
mocking
can,
the whole thing out, of course. Yeah, coming back to
yeah,
that.
or you can resolve it, or you can just mock it with a resolved value. That's what I was kind of trying to get at earlier, but I probably said it at a bad way. Like you could still inspect, like if your variables are called.
Right. Yeah, so in this case, how would I do that for, so then, yeah, again, so we're coming back to, we're mocking the whole implementation of fetch more here again, which is what I ended up with. Like that's currently what I have, is that I'm mocking that, the implementation of fetch more here.
Is that not what we want to do? I mean,
It's just a little bit like
wouldn't we be testing like, this could be wrong, but wouldn't we, if we didn't mock it, wouldn't we be, well, no, never mind, forget what I said. I was about to say the implementation of fetch more, but I stopped myself.
I think this is like as close as I could get it to, like we're still unit testing the component. I have a separate suite of tests to test the resolver. I expect that the Vue Apollo integration to work, and so in this case we have covered all the bases, I would say. I guess I wish there was a more elegant way to do this instead of like completely overriding the implementation, since we do have nice handlers like the mock adapter for the local resolver. But I think maybe what I'm getting at is that whole system with having the local resolvers and the local directive and all that stuff, having that set up and working. I mean, I tried to set up a local example to show a bug that I thought I found, and it turned out like that was what Natalia told me that I needed to write, like call this write query in order to activate the result in the component for my tests. Setting that whole system up was near impossible for me. I think I tried all the different live environments, JS Fiddle and CodePen and all that stuff. I tried just setting up a local repository, and I got near a result, but it took me so long to set up and replicate that exact state, and it just, to me, it alerted me to the fact of how brittle it is. And what I found was, and here is my, like the backing of my opinion on the Vue Apollo, is Vue Apollo was the one that kept breaking. Like from a little version update, even a supposedly non-breaking version update, it just like acted completely different, and I was not able to replicate the environment that we had. And that to me, that seems dangerous. It seems dangerous that we are dependent on a module that's so volatile and at least for me, not easily possible to set up a local working example where we can, like, throw it some punches and see how it works and test it out.
Could some of this pain be from the local resolver? I feel like it's a lot easier to test when you don't have the local resolver in place, but these are supposed to be short-lived, right? Like they're just to unblock you until you get the data that you need, like actually in GraphQL. So
valid point. Valid, yeah. and great point is that this is inherently temporary, because either there's a short a lifetime that's going to die at some point because they're getting deprecated, or we implement this in GraphQL and boom, all this goes out the window. So that's a great point, and also maybe a point to not spend too much time on this, though it is alerting to like some of the inner workings of GraphQL and our ability to test it and set up local testing environments for it.
Sorry, I'll be curious to see, to try to see what stopped you with the mocked resolvers, to see if we can solve it that way, just for the sake of poking at the problem until we have time. Cool. Will you be able to take a look at that?
Yeah, for sure. All right, so what do you want me to do?
So you are now importing the real resolvers, right? Or it was the other branch.
Cool.
Yes. So if we mock those with a JSFN mock resolve values, and then you will make it return whatever you want, right?
Gotcha.
So we can cut out the whole Axios
similar
part.
to this. Yeah. Cool. And then groups, we still want around, we don't need it to be actually asynchronous for that matter. We can just return.
No, they do. Don't they need to be promise regardless? I may be mistaken.
No, they can be synchronous. But I mean, them being asynchronous will map better to our use case. So that's
probably... let's try simple so we can try.
Do you want to introduce do we want to introduce like a spy or something here that we can adjust? Like we can create a shared variable for like groups, spy or something. You know what I'm saying?
Good point.
I was even thinking I was even thinking of doing it up there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we would initialize it in the before each or something.
Yep. Let me find the.
So the approach is fine. Just to chit chat while Michael types. We usually like pass the resolver into the create component as an option from outside.
Gotcha.
I think that's how we have it documented, but that's fine. You can continue like this.
I personally like keeping the create component with just focus on creating just the component, and I set up the collaborators and other functions because that create component function can get really gnarly, and sometimes the timing of things is important.
That's true. That's why I think the recommended approach is to have a create component with Apollo, which is a wrapper around create component. You initialize Apollo there and then create a component underneath.
Oh, okay.
But this is me, just how I'm used to, because I'm following what we wrote down.
I'm just going to pass it in for now.
Because like, I'm just following the rules, Paul, like you should be.
Okay, so we create a spy, we pass it in, and then do we just return that? I guess we do. There, and then that's our resolver. Do we not want to write to the cache then? I guess we should try without.
Quick typo or quick bug that we'll run into for sure. We want to set groups to group spy, not return group spy. We want groups to be groups.
Oh, thanks.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, so let's see. Another typo.
It's FN.
Oh,
yes, FN. Yep.
Great. Yeah, I always mix up spy on and FN and.
I think that every time, Sarah. FN jest. Okay.
FN jest. Cool. Okay, so this is. I guess we should not spy on this then. Or we should just not, sorry, we should spy on it, but not mock the implementation. Yeah, so now the case is because we don't write to the client, it's not activated. So it's just kept in this loading state.
So is this though related to the asynchronous nature and timing of things? Like, is that still a factor here? Like,
no, it's just, you see, it's kept in this loading state because I haven't written to the cache yet. Somehow, because it's a local resolver, it's not activated. yeah, those two are kind of conflicting things. You can't have a local resolver, I've learned, or activate it in component without having, like, you need kind of to write the cache before it gets activated. So that's why this is necessary.
It sounds like a nice thing that maybe we could abstract away in some sort of helper.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so now we essentially have the same thing. And okay, so this is working well. This is great. Outside of the fetch more query is still not recognized for some reason.
So
sorry, could you show again how we are passing the resolver inside to create mockapol?
Yes, so resolvers here, create mock client.
Is in the first argument an array that you be
argument, yes, first argument is handlers, second one is resolvers.
But this is a create, this is not our helpers, this is create mock.
Okay.
Oh, so it's create mock client. Yes, this should be fine.
So we're straight up like using it straight out instead of our helper. Obviously, we could refactor this to use the helper, but this will give us a few more abilities. Hey, Natalia.
Can we just for fun? Oh, sorry, we were going to say Natalia. Go for it.
No, I was just commenting. It's fine. Just.
Okay.
And sorry, I wasn't joining right from the start. I had one-on-one.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, all good. No worries. And thanks for the help so far. You've been super helpful.
Just for fun, can we throw in after each console log and see when is our test stopping and when is the execution stopping?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. These errors are happening after the fact. And I think we're not waiting long enough, I feel like.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so perhaps you want to wait here?
I have no idea. I would wait on the before each because usually like you want to do all the things and wait for all the things and then we can assert the thing.
Gotcha. Will do.
And yeah, we could wait for next tick. You could sometimes wait for promises, but what I found to be a very more reliable wait is actually emitting an event from the component that says, I did the thing. And then we can do that in our test. And that has little to no production costs, I feel like. So, and it could be help make tests reliable.
Gotcha.
But let's try it with next tick. Maybe that helps. I have no idea.
Okay.
It seems like it made it worse.
More of these errors. After each, and then and then we get the result. That's interesting. Let me just, so I saw this in one of your Natalia's setups where she needed to wait multiple times for whatever reason. Error with stack. So interesting. Oh, okay.
Something's getting
that seems like an actual error.
Are we? Yeah, I guess something's not getting cleaned up, right?
Cannot destructure. Okay, so that's probably happening.
It's because we should actually pass something that is compatible with the query in our mock resolver.
Oh, right. Yeah, of course. You're right. Oh, how is it I do this?
Do mock return value or mock resolved value. I think it's right, right?
Yeah, I think so. And then steal this. Oh, actually, I already have it here.
Ooh.
Okay.
So Natalia, you might know this. I brought this up when we saw these ID not found errors. That's what you were running into some like months ago, and we saw that we needed type name everywhere because that's right. Is that related here? You think?
In this case, fetchmore cannot recognize the query. It's a bit different thing, and if you Google with this error, actually can see a few bugs on Viopol reported and closed about this, but it was about the actual fetchmore hitting the backend. It's like when we change the query, observable query, this ID don't exist. It doesn't seem like a testing bug. It seems like fetchmore is not able to find what actual query we are fetching more results on.
Right. So I think I have found one of them here. I've been eyeballing that. Actually, I'm.
So one of the things that I was looking at is that when we use our helper, not directly mock Apollo client, we are actually calling, how's it called? Set request handler on the mock client, specifying query and handler. And I think that's the bridge that tells fetchmore where to find which query to go and look at. Can it be that? But maybe there is people that know better than me about this.
Can you say that again, Nico?
If you look at mock Apollo helper, the utility that we normally use for this, right? What you do inside, it's you take the client and you run set request handler query resolver on it. Okay, so you are telling which is the request handler for every query, and maybe that's the bit that we are missing to bind it for fetchmore.
I think the file is called like mock Apollo client or something.
Thank you.
Yes.
Like, what is it?
Oh, mock Apollo.
Yeah, this one. Yeah. So if you check line 15, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, but that's for so in our case we have a local handler, and it actually specifies in the implementation that it will ignore this because it's a local resolver, a client or local only resolver. So yeah, so this works perfectly when it's a normal GraphQL request, but when it's a local resolver, that's kind of where everything goes awry a little bit. Yeah, and I mean, like it's been said before, maybe this is just a waiting game, and knowing that this is going to be hard, and we're either going to wait until our API is converted to GraphQL, and then we don't have the local resolver, or we're in a place where we can start using local fields, and maybe our issues will look different.
Can we try something crazy?
Mm-hmm.
Can we go to the component and let's try the semantic event?
Gotcha.
Semantic event is not the word I'm thinking of, but anyways, yeah.
Here, for example.
I guess so.
So this emit event.
Just something, I don't know. Yeah. This is fine.
Oh, or in the result.
We
do fire 1, fire 2. Because it's all fire.
Yeah. With spaces in it. Yep.
Yep. Yes. Great.
And then instead
it's
of
more
our
readable
next tick, let's await, and we can create a new promise that resolves on that thing. You know what I mean?
Oops. Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Getting there. Cool. And then here we resolve.
Well, I guess we do wrapper.vm on like $on, and then pass resolve in. We do the fire 1, I guess. I have no idea. And then pass resolve into it though, right? Resolve is the callback to that.
Oh, so fun. Great. Yeah. Got it.
Same thing. So let's see what fire 2 is like.
Yeah.
Fetch more called. Same thing. But look, we got some of the errors. Oh, that's interesting.
Oh, that might be probably why it's dying or something.
Yeah.
Oh.
The plot
What?
thickens.
What? So that means that nodes.
Let's console log what nodes is.
Yes, good point.
I'm still a newbie debugger. I console log.
I love it. I love it.
I do the same all the time.
Yeah, is there anybody in this call that used debug statement? See, everybody's a console log team.
Takes too. It's too slow. It stops my execution. I can't.
Undefined. Yeah. What?
There you go. What? So yeah, if you. What is fetch more result groups?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, we're getting.
Oh, plot things. Paul, Jesus, you did get us further. That's awesome.
Woohoo.
Okay, so it says groups and then the fetch more. Okay, that actually does look right, though.
But look at fetch more result. You see it goes groups.
Yeah, groups. Ooh. Okay, so does that mean?
Oh, our data doesn't want to be groups. Our great data just wants to be, yeah.
Yeah, data.groups. I'll clean this up. And back to square one.
but here's some concerns.
But this looks right now.
But our test was passing through all of these, right? So it does bring up the concern, like, what's going on? Like, what are we?
Yeah,
if it works, if I pass data, if it works, I pass groups. Like, it is a little weird, whatever is happening here. So what I would.
Yeah, I'm so the reason why, the reason why it's passing all along is that I'm just testing that the fetch more is getting called again. I'm not actually asserting the next level because that's where I wanted to go, is that the fetch more result gets returned and now my component is reflecting that new state where I'm seeing all, like, not only the first request but the second request. And so I didn't get to go to that point because I was never able to get this far.
How far down the rabbit hole do you want to go?
Oh, all the way.
All the way? All right. All right. This is your time to leave Wonderland if you don't want to go down the rabbit hole. I'm really curious to know what is going on here with this error. So I kind of.
In this analogy, are you the Mad Hatter or?
I think this is a good question. I'm you in your dreams. I'm just joking. I don't even know what that means. I want to add a console log to this line. That's, if you go back to the error, I want to, that third query manager .get query with previous results. I kind of want to add a console log there.
Okay.
And I want to see, like, what is going on. And a lot of it is because I don't really know how Apollo works. And Natalia or someone else that knows Apollo way more than me, feel free to stop us from going down here if this is a dead end. But I feel like maybe we can get some more visibility on what's actually throwing this error by logging the node module.
So you want to log what here? Sorry.
Oh, we're going to node modules.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah. Okay, I see.
So that whole on where it says get query with previous result. The third one. Yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yep.
That's what seems to be throwing this issue. It's like we're trying to find some sort of query.
Oh, one thing that I noticed while I was debugging this, just as a fun FYI, I tried to actually use the actual implementation instead of using the mock client. And I learned that when I'm using the mock client in the in tests is using the UMD module. So when we're running tests, we're using UMD modules. When we're running in the live environment or like the server environment, it's the ESM modules.
Don't tell me that.
It's two completely different code bases that's running, whether you're interacting with it or running tests, and that
Michael,
made me
now Paul is not sleeping for a week.
I'm already used to this. Like, our jest tests don't run with the Webpack builds and stuff. Like, we have a totally separate build for our jest tests. So it's like, if I'm really paranoid, and 90% of me is, like, I get nervous about those things. So
I'm sorry to bring this to your attention.
These days, I've been really enjoying feature specs. But I actually just got someone pinged me on an issue. I wrote a bunch of feature specs and they're really slow. So, and I got pinged to, why did you add all these slow feature specs? So I don't have a good answer for anybody.
Cool.
Whoa.
That does not add up. Oh, 13.
Well, it's this line, right? Yeah, get query of previous result.
It's here, yeah.
Ooh. Yeah. So what is going on there? If we're in production,
does it think it's in a production environment? No, it doesn't, because
no,
it's the ladder. It's the
ladder.
ladder, sorry. Okay.
Found observe. So we're going to try to do found observable query, or we throw this error. So if we go back up,
Yep.
what is found observable query? And what is query ID or observable?
Oh, it's null.
It's
Great.
null, which is why it's throwing a fit.
Yeah.
So what is query ID or observable?
Yes.
Michael, can you do one change outside of node modules, please? Can you show me the component fetch more? How does it look in the code?
Yes. This one?
Yes, I think, could we change variables to be a function here? Because I see you're using these groups page info next page, and it's not dynamic. When we're usually this on fetch more, we usually want them to be dynamic, so dynamic variables. Let's just see if it changes anything, maybe not, but just in case.
That's interesting, because yeah, I did see people go on about the variables and that they were very delicate, and that there's some different machinery, whether you're using static values for the variables or.
Are we returning correct variables right now? Can I please check?
We should, but let me console log some more.
Yeah.
Cater to the audience here. Okay, so this actually gets hard to find.
Okay, so it should be fine.
Oh, nice.
Received.
But we are receiving right stuff now.
Yeah. Huh.
I mean,
that's good though. That's good, because this means that it's working, because well, essentially this would be an infinite loop, because we're returning it to be to be fetching the next page all the time, and the next page being the same one.
I'm glad we resolved this. That does seem to be a strong contributor. Yeah, that totally makes sense.
Okay, so
this is when we start to follow up MR to the previous MR.
Yeah. So how do we change, because we need, this is one SPY that is active for both the first one and the second one. Can we overload it?
Yeah, so this is a good question. So you could create a function to kind of create this, and like every time it's called, like
you didn't mock the first.
We have like three results that we call in a row or something, and one of them doesn't have the next page. Like it's a little wonky, but we can create a mock implementation like that.
I forget. There's like this mock first. responds or something. First call, first. Do you remember what it's called? Like when
I think the approach I was thinking of is a little different, and it might be even simpler.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
No, you're good. I would try this out. Let's create a helper function.
I'll move it up.
Anywhere, that's fine. We'll call it like create mocked sequence, something like that. And then it takes in a sequence. And then, but it has some sort of internal state of its current index, which would be like let I equal 0 or whatever. I know, I like single character variable names.
I hate it. Sorry.
That's cool. That's cool. And then
hate is a strong word.
That's okay. You have strong feelings about it. You return jest.fn dot mock implementation or something. And I don't even know if we want to do jest.fn. Maybe we just return just a function like this. But in the mock implementation, we're going to it doesn't need to be a promise. Do we have to?
No, I'm waiting for you to.
Yeah. Sorry. In the body, we are going to increment current index if we're not at the end. So, do you know what I'm saying? If we're like, if current index is greater than or equal to sequence dot length -1, I guess. Something like that. There's probably a prettier way to do that. Then
yeah. So what I was like, you can do this in Jest where you're saying mock first implementation, mock second implementation.
You can do that?
Yeah, that's where I was going.
I was gonna
you're
just
like, my way is way simpler. I'm like,
maybe.
We're down. Like,
I don't know.
That's okay. I mean,
so I guess what I really want to do here is if current index is less than sequence dot length -1, then we're going to increase it. But that's only after we get the result, which is so right above the if, we're going to get the result, which is the sequence at the current index or whatever. Yeah. And then return that result. And then change the less than equal to less, I think. Yeah, isn't this incredibly simple?
Yeah, I get it.
Straightforward.
Something like that. Throw it in helpers and never look at it again.
But though it's nice that we discovered that there was an issue with the code, at least minimal one, by keep digging at the tests, right?
But is there an issue with the code? Like, if we do keep getting next pages, aren't we supposed, like, technically is the code just supposed to keep going? Maybe the code should have a max.
If the variables is declared as an object, you can't use this inside because it's pointing to nothing actually.
Oh really? Oh wow.
Yeah. So this
you need to use a function.
This change to a function was
nice.
But it does work though. That's what's like. I did test this out. It does fetch the next page as it's supposed to and update the variable and stop at some point. So it was working before. But
doesn't it point to the object, to the component definition in that moment when you declare it as an object like this, and so you are sharing the state across all the components, I guess?
Yeah, perhaps, but I think this is more elegant for sure, because here you're like sure that you're getting that variable even if it's just declared just outside that function. And not dependent on this like connectedness.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
And furthermore, we should probably put in like if the page is the same as the next one, like you should probably like put in a halt and not continue into infinity.
This is a good point. And probably even like if you have done 10 pages, like I don't, you probably should be done, even if there is more. Like something's problematic if we just keep fetching pages till forever. Maybe we do need to do some sort of forever scroll or something. So that's a good point as well. We're at time. You're almost out of battery.
I am.
I know. So thanks everybody.
This was super fun.
hopping on.
Thank you so much for jumping on this call.
It was super educational and helpful. Yeah, this is thanks for bringing it up. I appreciate it, Michael.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you for
Bye, everyone.
being part of this.
Catch you
Bye.
all later. Bye.